Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is already May 6th of 2025, and given that the Walt Disney Company is not having a good year so far, not just after what happened with Snow White 2025, but also when you're looking back throughout 2024, and especially in 2023, they had a lot of box office failures, a lot of ratings disasters when it came to their television programs on Disney Plus, and a lot more than that. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, where it stands right now is that we do know that Disney CEO Bob Iger is truly trying to recover from basically all the criticism that he has gained throughout the years before he decides to stand down by 2026, before he decides to actually call it quits and a new CEO comes on board, either for better or worse. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there next year. But what's interesting here has a lot to do with what's going on with the Disney Company, both behind the scenes and in the public eye, and the ongoing financial collapse that recently just got a lot worse, alright, than what anybody would have thought to actually have happened in 2025. Now, this is where it really begins to settle in. Now, we know that Snow White was one of the biggest failures across the board, especially when you look at the IMDb rating score. It is way down there. We know that Disney did not see that coming. They did not see any of that coming, quite frankly, when it came to the box office metrics, because they poured so much money into this thing. They were so overconfident about this movie. But focusing less on that, we also know that they are trying their best with Thunderbolts. They want to make sure that this movie is going to gain all the money that it can to recover for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and so far, when you're factoring in a lot of other expenses, it's really not working in their favor as of yet. However, with the Walt Disney Company in a constant state of panic right now, especially after the Snow White box office failure, along with the Thunderbolts box office challenges, one major development going on now involves the overall most recent update surrounding the Disney Company financial collapse and how it recently hit rock bottom after Disney wasted hundreds of millions of dollars, not just on, of course, failed release projects, but also on canceled projects. Now, both Bob Iger and the board of directors recently held an emergency meeting where the Disney financial crisis hit a new low after canceling well over 5 Disney live-action related projects, where it resulted in a loss of $500 million plus, just based on films that were in pre-production that have now been officially canceled/axed. One of which involved a live-action version of Tangled, where now the previous plans for that film are going under a major facelift, where the funds spent on the pre-production for that film was around $115 million that went nowhere, as the film is going through a major shift and change. To make matters even worse for the Disney Company is that they also canceled a new iteration of Sword in the Stone that was going to focus on many of the characters that would be race and or gender swapped within the actual story. Now, they reportedly spent, get this, $150 million on the pre-production of that film in isolation alone, and as, of course, this iteration of the film is completely cancelled and going through a major facelift as well, funds, of course, were wasted on that movie altogether. Other films that got a similar treatment also involved a reimagining of Alice in Wonderland and a sequel to 2023's The Little Mermaid. Both of those films combined involved pre-production funds to be around $80 million so far, and these are just these are just some examples of the changes that Disney is currently going through, as Bob Iger is desperately trying to build his legacy before he plans to step down in 2026. Now, to top, of course, everything off here, to make matters worse, for Iger, is that the board of directors specifically forced him to push cost-cutting measures for all Star Wars, Marvel, and live-action films, moving forward, even for their animated movies from Pixar. Far less money will now be spent to make these movies in response to the financial loss that they went through for both films, of course, that failed at the box office, and investments to films during their pre-production cycle that ended up getting canceled. Now, guys, let me just, stop right there for one moment. The fact that not only did they waste a lot of money, alright, $500 million on all of these projects that are going nowhere now, that are either going to permanently be canceled or they're going to have a major facelift, and it's going to be so different to the point that they really can't use the same funds to actually remake that movie. It goes to show you that Disney's in a very serious situation right now. Not only are people fed up with Star Wars, people are fed up with Marvel. And they realize this. Disney actually is seeing this with Thunderbolts. Now, yes, Thunderbolts, let's just be very real, it is getting good reviews. People are enjoying this movie. But again, when you look at the box office results, when you look at how much money they need to break even, we're talking $500 million plus for Thunderbolts to break even on a movie's budget that was $180 million. Also, when you're dragging in marketing expenses, that is well over $100 million there. They really have to have a good second week, and it's not looking good so far when you're really factoring in everything all together. Again, like I've said before, I think that a lot of Marvel fans are just exhausted. I think a lot of Star Wars fans are just exhausted of Disney's nonsense, to the point that even some movies that are generally just okay or fun to watch, even people aren't really turning in for that. People actually aren't going to the theaters anymore for movies like that, because a lot of trust has been lost within Disney. A lot of people have walked away from this company. That's really what it boils down to. So now Disney's in this vicious cycle. They're in this constant loop of, what do we do? How do we get, away from all of the issues that we created ourselves, right? And this is where it really begins to kick in, because this goes to show you how hypocritical Disney really is. Let's get into this further. Disney recently lost a whopping $535 million, to be exact, for all of these canceled projects that are now going through a major facelift and or remaining canceled. However, Disney's strategy where it stands right now is to release a combination of films that are both agenda-driven and non-agenda driven to please shareholders across the board. Essentially, Disney is still pursuing DEI for their films and television programs. However, non-agenda films and projects will be used as a strategy to gain trust for both shareholders and moviegoers/customers to stay afloat from casual audience members as they rethink their entire strategy moving onwards as Bob Iger prepares to change. Now again, we know that Disney is going through a very troublesome 2025. Fantastic Four has to knock it out of the park for Marvel to really kind of gain the traction that it needs to come back for 2026. And again, yes, we have Doomsday next year. I'm sure that it will do numbers unless it really just has some irredeemable aspects in that movie that's going to drive away fans. We'll have to wait and see. But again, based on everything alone in 2025 and how things are going so far with their movie releases, it's not looking quite well so far in the live action department, right? In the live action area over at Disney. Now look, we know that Bob Iger is doing everything in his power to do damage control, to go into desperation mode, to really cover up what he did before in 2024, 2023, and quite frankly, the past several years, even with the Bob Chapek era, there was a lot of issues that Disney was going through regardless. So again, the fact that they wasted so much money on all of these projects that are now going through a major facelift, that are either getting completely canceled permanently as well, it goes to show you as well that Disney really has no organized plan as we speak to really kind of make all of their financial aspects come back to life, right? I would like to hear what everyone has to say about all of this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.